But they also came from my own experience in working with leaders and in the shift that we're doing together. And so they just became a beautiful metaphor
Mm.
for change in leadership and life. And so the first is root and strength and simplicity. And it's really about like when everything changes and your whole life changes or the world seems to change around you, and that's when you have to get really clear on what matters. Like you can have 100 things going on, and I've seen this when people get an illness, all kinds of ways where they can have a million things going on, and but you can kind of get away with flowing through life without really being clear on what matters. There was just something about being in Nepal and that physical track and the emotional track of like, and then watching the Sherpa people and being with them about rooting and strength and simplicity. And that's way one.
That's
Like,
so funny because
yeah,
I just did all that market research of from women entrepreneurs, and that was
yeah.
the number one trend I was seeing right now is simplification. I just
Hmm.
wrote a blog on it this morning, or it just came out in today's blog. So I love that this alignment there. But how wonderful you saw that in the Sherpa people,
Hmm.
and also you experienced it.
Hello, my extraordinary women friends. Today, I am so excited to welcome back my friend Renelle Everett Darr. Renelle is a conscious leadership advisor and the founder of Insight, and the kind of woman who brings deep wisdom and soul to every room she enters. Her work lives at the intersection of leadership, strategy, and culture, helping executives and organizations bring a new frequency to life and leadership. She guides visionary leaders to move through change with courage, shape cultures rooted in connection, and amplify their personal presence and power. In this conversation, Renelle shares the story behind the Sherpa Way, a powerful framework inspired by a personal pilgrimage to Nepal. This journey became a threshold moment for her, and the 5 guiding practices she discovered along the way are now changing how her clients lead through change. We explore what it means to attune to your environment, root in strength and simplicity, elevate joy, and lead from the inside out. And I was so honored to present Renelle with this year's Fire Dancer Award at last week's Extraordinary Women Ignite conference. Each year, I recognize one of my clients, and I have so many extraordinary clients, but I recognize one, I choose one who has boldly stepped into her visibility and her mission, and Renelle truly embodies that spirit. Her podcast, Conscious Insights, is one of my favorites, where she takes leaders into rich, soulful conversations about growth, presence, and the deeper layers of leadership. She's also brought her Sherpa Way message to powerful stages this year, all while living a life that's beautifully aligned with her values. And speaking of Ignite, I am still aglow from Ignite last week. The room was alive with fire and wisdom and women rising. It makes me a happy woman. So now let's dive in and meet Renelle Everett Darr.
Welcome back to Extraordinary Women Radio, Renelle. I am so thrilled to have you back with us today.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be back. Gosh, when was I first on? Was it maybe like 2018 or something?
It probably even earlier than that because it's 8 years that we've been doing this. So 8 years ago plus, because
Yeah.
you were one of my first guests that I had on the show. So I think you were number 4. When I looked back at that, you were my 4th episode that I did initially.
Oh, I love that. That's exciting.
Yeah, and I know. And here we are. And it's you and I started our businesses in the same year, which is always fun because we were good walking buddies and we would brainstorm on all of the business stuff as we were both starting and launching our businesses all those years ago. And that was clear back in 2009.
Hmm.
And that it's been really fun to see what you have done in the world, what the business that you've built, and just the journey that you're on, right? It's like we're all on these big journeys in life, and entrepreneurship can be such a beautiful place for us to grow as individuals and in addition to being business women.
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It all fits together, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You think you're, yeah, it's just starting a business that you happen to be starting, and there's no connection to like your meaning and purpose. I don't know. I think it'll find you if you think just starting a business just to make widgets or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So
No, I totally agree. It's there to guide us. I think a lot of times, I mean, we're there guiding our businesses, but it's also our businesses are also guiding us. And I love that about it. So I've always loved your work, always from the very get-go. I've loved your work. And it really lives at that intersection of leadership, strategy, and culture, those three areas. And you're helping leaders and organizations really bring a new frequency to life. And I love that. Bring a new frequency to life. Tell us more about that, but what does bring a new frequency to life even mean?
yeah, well, so I love that you're asking me to say that in words because bringing a new frequency to life is actually very much an embodied thing, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
always a challenge to have just the right words
Yep.
for what that means,
Yeah.
because the work itself is so embodied, and so what I would say is that as there's no shortage of complexity and change in the world.
Right.
And as this continues, as things continue to accelerate, the capacity that we embody as humans and as leaders, we must increase that frequency so that we have more capacity and capability. And so there's a lot of beliefs and assumptions and ways that we operate and look at ourselves that carries a lot of density. And then that density really gets in the way of us being able to really be in touch with the energy and around us, not just, just the energy in general that exists in nature and in science, but the energy between people. And so the more we can clear that, the more we have access to author a new way
Mm,
forward. And so when people talk about being, so much more unknown and uncertainty, in some ways that's exciting if we open ourselves up to it and let that be revealed. Just like you said earlier, as we're leading our businesses and our businesses are guiding us. We're
yeah.
living our lives, but life is guiding us also.
So I believe that we're here right now in this time for a reason, right? Because I think the work that you're doing, the work I'm doing really is aligned with what's happening in our world. And we can look at it, and I love the way that you look at it through the lens of there's a lot happening in the world, and yet this is part of what's here to shift and to change the world.
hmm It's a paradox.
It's a paradox. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because some of the things that are happening are not exactly feel joyful or
Yeah.
feel like, oh, this is the change I want to see. And so it's a paradox of, are there things breaking down in order for us to put them back together in a different way?
Yeah. Yeah. So I like this so much. So tell us a little bit about how your work has evolved, over these last, we're almost 17 years, into to this space of from 2009 to now. So how has your work evolved over this time?
Well, speaking of people evolving, the work has evolved right along with my evolution, which is also interesting because the work that I do and that I've always done in the world has always been about the bridge between the system change and the individual change.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, I started my career more on the systems change side
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and organizational and strategy. And when I started Insight in 2009, which was also a massive change in the world going on.
Right, exactly.
I didn't think the change could get any more massive than the large recession in 2008, and think again because there's been bigger change since.
That's right.
But that was, there was a lot of change going on then, and there was a lot of change going on within me.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of starting Insight was about addressing that change in me, of me meeting my purpose. Something told me I needed, actually, it really did come to me in a dream. That's not even a lie. The name of the company, what I needed to do. And it was, for me, it was a big jump of can I be an entrepreneur and
Mm-hmm.
can I do this systems work in a different way. So some of the ways that corporate life was flowing wasn't working as well for me anymore because of my overworking perfectionistic tendencies that also needed work. And but the other reason was wanted to add the individual shift and change into the systems change work. At that time, it wasn't really done. And I had had an executive coach and had experienced more change within myself than any other time period. And yet we were doing these massive organizational change projects and we weren't really linking them to leadership development and coaching leaders in a deep way. It's done a little bit more today. And so
Right.
that's really how my work has evolved as well as really being able to bring that bridge in to not just, hey, I do both of these things, but let's do all of this together when you as an individual leader shift, and then the next leader shifts, and the next leader shifts, then our systems start to shift. And it happens within family systems as well, right? If a family member shifts, then possibly another family member will shift. But even if just one person, the system starts to shift, and to being really intentional about that.
It's like an ecosystem of what's happening within the different people, within a community, within a group, within a family. With when one person is changing, that shifts the whole dynamics of that group, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's something bigger that we're looking to change, like there is a process. I mean, you hear a lot of people talking right now about certain things in the world that we want to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely do we then say, how do I have to change first in order
Right.
for that process or thing? And that happens in organizations as well. Of, oh,
Right.
we're going to restructure the organization because we need to be more efficient or we need to do this. And it's rare to say we also need to look at other quadrants of change. We may
Yeah.
not fully realize that change for those reasons. Maybe we're even solving the wrong problem because we're only looking to change something external without the internal.
Yeah. So this bringing the work within into the mix of all of this is so important, and I totally agree. I mean, I can just think of my own journey, how I've evolved and grown over the last 15, 16 years, and that growth that happens and the outward projection of who we are, and not even projection, embodiment of who we are, shifts
Yeah.
alongside of that, right? It's not the projection, but it's the embodiment of who we are, and we're shifting in the mix of all of this. How do you work with your leaders to move through that journey?
Yeah, I will answer that question, but I want to say something else first, is I was just thinking of how long I've known you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've known you maybe 25 years. And I think
Right.
of it like in many ways, I still know you as the same person I met, but in other ways, I also know you as a very different person
Yeah.
as well. And so both are true. It's the
Right.
paradox again. So I just
Right.
like your evolution is absolutely profound. And so there's this red thread that you carry through, but then there's this different embodiment, this different energy when I'm around you as well.
Mm. Yeah.
So.
No, I get that. I get that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so back to the actual question. So how do leaders how do they
Yeah,
embody?
as they're evolving and embodying all of who they are, how are you helping them through that journey?
Yeah. Well, whether I'm working with individual leaders or the system, what I'm always trying to do is help people connect what's going on within themselves and how
Mm-hmm.
that shift that connects to the systems that they're leading.
Mm-hmm.
Though in general, we will start with taking a look at and kind of almost one of my clients calls it, he's like, you help me deconstruct things. And we showed it to the system and then we reconstructed it and put it back together in a different way. And I was like, that is actually what we're doing. I haven't used those words in the past, but that is
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing. And so he's still the same person, but he's a shifted person in a shifted system. And so that is what we do is we take I utilize a tool called the leadership circle, but more
Mm-hmm.
than that, it's about really helping people look at their own reactivity
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, they're looking at their purpose and their values. And so playing with the tension of what keeps me safe and what maybe has gotten me where I'm at, and how do I overuse that? And it becomes a limitation. And it
Mm.
becomes a limitation in me reaching my purpose, really living, clearly living my values. And so we play with that tension. And the more we play with the tension and we loosen it, the more we can actually start to shift into a more embodied, creative, self-authored capacity.
I like
And
this.
yeah, and
I
so
often think about we stretch the boundary a bit, but this is another way to look at it entirely. I like it.
yeah, yeah. And it is this expansive, but so many people, when we start looking at, our shadow or our reactivity or our triggers, or it's like, oh, we gotta fix that stuff.
Yeah.
And we're not really fixing it per se. We're seeing the gifts in it, and we're seeing the overuse of it and the limitations and maybe some false assumptions about why we use it so much.
Yeah.
And so when we can let go, because if we can't see all that, it's really, really hard to understand which dense that I talked about density earlier, which piece we need to kind of let go of to increase that capacity and which piece we want to transcend and carry forward.
Cool. I love it. Let's go to Nepal. Let's talk about Nepal because I know this is you had a journey to Nepal that was a major threshold in your life. And what brought you to that moment? And then how did that journey become just a really pivotal part of your change?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've traveled to many, many countries in the world,
Hmm.
as you know, and one place I never made it to before I had children that for some reason I thought I had to do before I had children was to go to Nepal. And, I don't know, again, limiting beliefs as we were talking about. I guess I thought that I couldn't go there after I had children, like I had to do it before I had children when I was younger, which is not true at all. And 2019 was I had small children, and a number of things happened where I ended up having to make the choice to get divorced, and not necessarily a choice I wanted to make, but it was something where this is reality, this is what's happening. And so as I was moving through that, I knew I needed to do something to mark that transition to this new person, this new way, I guess. I was still the same person, but this new way. And Nepal had always called me in. It was always calling me. And for some reason, there's not really a logical explanation behind it other than I must go. And the stars aligned, had chai at Karma Sherpa's house. I live in Colorado, and he owns Sherpa Mountain Adventures, and his brother, and he's from Nepal but lives in Colorado, and his brother Nima Sherpa lives in Nepal and runs all of their treks. And so I signed up to go in 2020 as part of like marking that threshold, and didn't go in 2020.
Right.
Her big world transition happened that year.
Hmm.
And so there was really not a lot of international travel until 2022. And so I decided to go ahead and hold on to that trip and went in 2022. And it was a difficult decision because I had small children that I didn't see 100% of the time, and it's just hard
Right.
to leave them in general. And yet there was a call, a really big call of you've got to go do this thing that's been a dream, that's calling you in for a reason you don't fully know. Also, and to mark this threshold of this, I don't know, this emergence of my next version of me, I guess.
Right. Right. The emergence of Renelle.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went. And I thought Nepal was going to be more of, I mean, it was a trek, but it just felt like it was going to be more of a personal, spiritual thing for me.
Hmm.
And so I hadn't really tied it at all to work.
Hmm.
And then I got there, and it was so what we did in Nepal is we trekked to Everest Base Camp. We didn't climb Everest, but we trekked to Everest Base Camp, which in and of itself is
That's a
quite
big
a
deal.
journey. Yeah, it's quite a
Yeah.
journey. And because it's just like I've climbed Kilimanjaro, which is amazing, but it's only a couple of days above sustained elevation. The trek to Everest Base Camp is multiple days above 11,000 feet, leading up to about I think it's 17,000. And so there was that, but there was kept being these moments that like that would just bring this heightened awareness. It was both the awe of the Himalaya, which
Beautiful.
is there's yeah, you've been there. There's
Hmm.
it's indescribable, the awe of that place, but also the Sherpa people and how they live and how they guide and how they lead. And so I just kept having moment after moment of both this personal transformation and this seeing like how, similarities to the deep leadership work that we
Yeah.
do with the leadership circle. And I was like, wow. And so it was like this way of this complete embodiment that could also then tie back to transformative leadership. And so it was a both and moment, which is also something that I talk about a lot, moving from seeing the world as either or to both and. And so
Hmm.
there was just these multiple perspectives emerging. And a couple of opportunities along the way to do some relational work on the team, and that was noticed by the people that run the company. And so as it ends up, I had this vision of utilizing the Nepal trip both well I was it was first only the vision was to take people to Nepal, and then it morphed into us developing the 5 ways of the Sherpa together, which has morphed into a really fun keynote, taking people through Nepal through the 5 ways of the Sherpa without ever actually going to Nepal physically, but definitely going there with your imagination.
So give us some of the five things that you teach in your keynote, and some programming that you're building around this as well. I mean, because
Yeah.
you want to take people back to Nepal with these lessons.
Definitely want to take people to Nepal, and I think we definitely will be. We're going to go this year, and a couple of things happen. But there's also a way to experience these 5 ways, right here at home, but yet really be immersed in Nepal. So way one, so before I talk about these ways too, I want to say that these came in co-creation with Karma Sherpa, but they also came from my own experience in working with leaders and in this shift that we're doing together. And so they just became a beautiful metaphor
Mm.
for change in leadership and life.
Mm.
And so the first is root and strength and simplicity. And it's really about like when everything changes and your whole life changes or the world seems to change around you, and um, we that's when you have to get really clear on what matters. Like you can have 100 things going on, and I've seen this when people get an illness, when all kinds of ways where they can have a million things going on, and but you can kind of get away with flowing through life without really being clear on what matters. And there was just something about being in Nepal and that physical track and the emotional track of like, and then watching the Sherpa people and being with them about rooting in strength and simplicity.
Mm.
And that's way one of
That's
like,
so funny because
yeah,
and I just did all that market research of from women entrepreneurs, and that was
yeah.
the number one trend I was seeing right now is simplification. I just
Hmm.
wrote a blog on it this morning, or it just came out in today's blog. So I love that this alignment there. But how wonderful you saw that in the Sherpa people,
Hmm.
and also you experienced it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so sometimes when I'm giving them, I give people a number of exercises and pictures, and I tell stories about things that happen that relate to this. And people, oh, that's where Everest is, right? But the mountain that kept catching me and making me just stop in my tracks and really remember what matters, like what's my red thread, was a mountain called Ama de Blam, and it means mother's necklace. And it just around every corner I would see Ama de Blam, and I would just, and so that's one of the exercises after I tell a number of stories is like, what's your Ama de Blam instead of what's your
Mm,
Everest? Because
yeah,
it's really not about conquering a peak.
right.
This is about the journey. And
Yeah.
it's very
Where you
different.
feel a connection.
Hmm.
And I know you use the word red thread a lot, that red thread that runs through, but it's like where you feel like this deep connection that it just stops you in your tracks.
Yeah.
And it really, I love that it wasn't Everest, because it could be just, Everest could be, um, a lot of people will easily go there, but you were tuned in enough to say, wait a minute, what's this other one right here?
Yeah, exactly. And it just speaks to you right at the very beginning too. And so it's like it's simplicity, but it's also strength. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's this like a real quiet strength that the Sherpa people have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's profound. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's finding your strength can also be like what really matters to you, what really are your values. It's super interesting how we can get away from that when we get busy, we get scared, whatever it might be, is to really make sure like we're clear on what matters.
Nice. Nice.
And yeah, and then as I'm trekking on, the second one is weave strong ties. And there are lots of suspension bridges in Nepal, and especially on the way to Everest Base Camp. And I didn't think I was scared of those. I have actually been on a couple, but there was some in Nepal where I couldn't, like, I just stopped at the very beginning, and I was like, I can't cross this. And I was like, where did this come from? And it was my team and the Sherpa people that got me across. And there's a number of other stories that I tell, but if you think about that in terms of life as well, about when we get clear on what matters, like within ourself, and so that's our relationship with ourself, we also need to make sure that we have these relations with others and we have these strong ties with others. And when I'm working with leaders, I mean, some of the exercises we'll do, it was not just about the people that are just there for you. It's like, but there's like, who are your challengers? Who are your supporters? Who have you not invited in yet that really needs to be part of your journey? And
Mm-hmm.
and the Sherpa people, the way that they are connected within these seemingly isolated villages,
Mm-hmm.
without their strong ties, that there's no way we would have been able to accomplish what we did. And they run ahead and get you a tea house, which is where you stay. They get you a tea house that day. You don't make reservations there. And so it's the relationships that they have that help us weave through the mountains.
Wow. And,
Yeah.
and when you take that back to life, I mean, we definitely need community around us as we weave through life,
Oh, absolutely. I
or
mean,
leadership.
right. The word belonging and
Hmm.
isolation, and then it's kind of, I guess, opposite isolation that
Right.
is so prominent now.
Right.
We need to embody that so much. Yeah. And then way three is this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, Cami, when I talked about seeing your reactivity or just seeing everything. It's like this see it as it is. That was part of, my realization when I had my big life change and through divorce was like really seeing it as it is.
Mm.
And we utilize in Nepal, even people that are climbing Everest, stop in a place called Namche Bazaar, and it's this village built on a mountainside. So every street is up a layer, and so you walk like you hike upstairs into the village, and you hike up, to each different street, and you hike up out of it, and it's where even the climbers stop and you acclimate there, and it's this chance to really see it as it is. And so a lot of times you figure out what gear is missing, and that's the only place you're probably going to be able to buy it. It's usually when people first start getting sick because it's a pretty high altitude.
Hmm.
We had our first like team dynamic issues happening at Namche, and so it's just and so I use and it's just this beautiful place, and so then I use it with teams and with myself even as like, can you really see things as they are, not as you wish they were, but
Hmm.
as they are. And the
Hmm.
paradox of that is that it's the more you can see things as they are, the more you can actually realize visions of how you want things to be.
Mm. I like that.
Right. And instead
Yeah.
of, yeah. And so there are a number of exercises, but that see it as it is. And I always tell people that that's my number one of the five ways, my number one lesson that I continue to learn over and over is to see things as they are. I can go towards positivity, which is a good thing, but but really positivity can be overused
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
can really get in our way of transforming.
Yeah, I totally get that. You're in Enneagram 7 too, aren't you?
I sure am.
Yeah,
It's part
that's
of the
so am
reason.
I. There's that positive gene. Yep, I get
Yeah.
it.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, actually, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm just like, sometimes people are like, when I actually say something that's very not positive, I'm like, you don't understand the amount of growth that is for me to say that. So, anyway, so and then once we are really able to see it as is, that's when we talk about attuning to the environment. That's way four,
Uh-huh.
and it's after you leave Namche Bazaar is when you get to much, much higher elevations and you sustain that for multiple days. And weather changes, people get sick, tea houses aren't available, food issues. I mean, and so in Nepal, just being able to, one, watch the Sherpa people just guide us kind of through that. We might change plans. Some, they don't ever give you miles, or they might say, oh, we'll probably be hiking about 7 hours. We're like, okay, how much elevation? All these questions that we ask.
Uh-huh. They
They're
don't.
like, about 7 hours. And they kind of smile at you and are like, about 7 hours. We're trying to use our watches, right? And just have everything
And we
predictable.
want everything to come to us in this box that we know exactly what's going to happen. And we can look at this in life and in leadership. And it's like, you know, you think about all the things that are happening around us, and we just can't project any of that. So
Right.
it's like just being in that space.
Yeah, well, we think that we're getting all this certainty, but we're actually not. And so all mountain life, but there's really something about being in the Himalaya that really like really attuning to the environment, because there can be really extreme conditions
Yeah.
sometimes as well. And so again, it's just about that attunement. And then there's so much attunement that we really, especially in this more complex world that we're living is, if you can really see things as they are, being
Hmm.
able to attune and dance with life and dance with all the change a little bit more
Yeah.
is way four. And then we end with something that's it's if you think about the peak, because we're not really we're on a journey, we're not climbing a peak and when we're going to Everest Base Camp or when we're trekking in Nepal, but the fifth is elevate joy. And joy is a way of being. It's not something we're trying to attain. And the way the Sherpa people have just joy flowing through everything that they do is just phenomenal. And so just think about all the change, all the shift, all the disappointment, but can I find joy somewhere in every moment? And it's different than positivity.
Yeah.
It's really, really different of being, oh, let's be positive, of really, really finding joy in every moment.
And being in it, I think, and because I was on the flip side of Everest, I was on the Tibet side, and the Tibetan people had that same energy of joy. I mean, there's just so much joy meeting the people all along the way. So I get that, and I think that that's such an important piece for all of us is to be in our joy.
Yeah, to find moments of it each day. I was funny, I have it next to me somewhere. I just found, I think it's David Hawkins has this consciousness, like the frequencies of different consciousness and emotions. And I picked it up out of some stack of stuff, but I don't have it right in front of me now. But joy actually is a frequency, and that emotion of joy that is like a very high vibration
Hmm.
feeling, and so there I was like, oh, that's right, yeah, there's just, and so you're tapping into a frequency that's really all around us when you're tapping into joy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean doesn't mean you can't be sad, but it's just making that part of the way of being. What, like, doing business with the Sherpa people, before Karma and I ever signed a contract, because we are going to do some trips and some work together. He told me, he's like, we have to be friends first.
Mm,
And so we had multiple chai meetings and lunch meetings and all kinds of things before we ever signed a contract. And we knew we needed it, but I loved that approach of like, we'll get to
yeah.
the contract. It's really most important that we're friends.
That's so good. So good.
Yeah.
on that joy piece, that did you ever read the book Joy by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu?
Oh, I don't think so, but I really
Oh my
should.
gosh, it's like one of my favorite books because it was some of this, it was some of that same philosophy. So I love that. I
Mm,
love that. Um, okay, so for our listeners who might be standing on their edge or their personal, whether it's personal or professional, what perspective or practice from the Sherpa way might help them step forward through some with more courage and connection and heart? What's one thing they might do?
yeah. Um, one, I mean, I guess I would look at it as a whole first, but that
Uh-huh.
first way of rooting in strength and simplicity,
Mm-hmm.
I say, what's your red thread? What, no matter what, is like keeps you at center? And that can feel either a little cliche or a little like, especially when you're standing like at an edge and at a threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it's really what gets you through. And sometimes we forget. We really forget what really is the most important thing to us. What is, when I say our purpose, I mean, it's not what we do, it's who we are. Like we forget. It's not that we don't know. It's that
Yeah.
we forgot.
Yeah.
And to get really clear on that and then to to follow the ways, but then to let life reveal itself, to see it as it is, to start to attune, bring back your joy. Um, it's um, trust the unknown a little bit. I think that it's really hard to do. But even when I started Insight and I left my suppose my cozy corporate job, I guess. I mean, it was hard work. So when I say cozy corporate job, I guess it's what I thought was
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
That act of just taking the first step was scarier than any step after.
Yeah.
Was. I remember it was like, oh, that was actually stepping off the high dive. But then I trusted myself, what I was rooted in, and trusted life.
Yeah.
Things worked.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So where can people learn more about you and your work and connect with you?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you
Hmm.
look up Renelle Everett Darr, that's a great place to connect with me. Also, my website at insight-cc.com has some information there. I have a podcast also called
Yes.
Conscious Insights. And so that's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then it's called uh, Insight with Renelle Everett Darr on YouTube. And so those are a couple of different places that
Yeah.
I like to
I
play.
love
And
your podcast. It's a great podcast. It really is good.
thank
You,
you.
you,
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been kind of a labor of love. We're shifting it up a little bit this year. And I started off with the founder of Leadership Circle. We were talking about authoring, a new leadership frequency, and then I'm going to do some specific practices and learning along the way. Where last year it was a lot of interviewing a lot of people, so and just so people can see different ways. So we'll
I love it.
come
I
visit
love it.
us. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The final question I always close with is what are three pearls of wisdom you'd like to leave with us today?
Three pearls of wisdom. I um, just think that. Like I said, I'm a really big person about bridges, a bridge from self into system, the head and the heart. And um, I think I would say, like, trust your intuition just as much as you trust your intellect, and let the paradox and the force of life guide you that way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And instead of just one or the other. And so it's, be that bridge, see your reactivity to find your creativity, shift yourself to shift the system. It's like really trust in that, and trust in those paradoxes and those bridges that will keep moving you forward. Keep crossing the bridges.
Love it. I love it. So that's one. What's two more?
That was only one.
That was only
Oh
one.
gosh, I thought that was like five. Okay. So that one and um, pearls of wisdom. I don't know why it comes to me, but just be a good friend for
Mm,
whatever reason.
hmm.
Intuitively, that just came to me as just be a good friend. And and I guess probably my favorite saying, I said it a little bit earlier, but in order to we must first evolve ourselves to transform our systems. And so remember that as you see change that
Correct.
you want, is to really remember that we've got to start with ourselves. When we see people that we think are our enemies, part of the expansion of consciousness is to see our enemy within us,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and start to transform ourselves. And that's a path to transforming the systems and authoring a new way forward.
Mm. Well, thank you so much, Renelle, for joining me today and bringing your good wisdom to Extraordinary Women Radio again. And I love seeing your journey and what you're building. And I'm super excited about the Sherpa Way. I think it's really magical work that you're doing right now.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. It's so great to be back
You bet.
from the
You bet.
fourth to the 144th or whatever, what
Oh,
episode.
we're like 400
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know
Oh,
where we
from the
are.
fourth to the 400th. That's
There we go,
even
400 and
more.
something. Yeah, maybe
Well, thank you, Katie.
444th. So,
Oh,
okay,
thank you so
thank you.
much. And love that we're still in each other's lives and being part and watching your evolution.
Oh, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.